Thank you. That's such a fun song. Oh my goodness. Peace, Advent. Norma Rosado shares in our Unity Advent booklet the reading for peace for Friday, December 13th. Any superstitious people? We apparently have a Friday the 13th this week. There's giving you a heads up so you can prepare. She says in the Bible, each story and character represents a state of mind in our own lives. For such reasons, the Christmas story may have a different meaning for everyone, depending upon the elements of the narration we pay attention to. Take, for example, the shepherds who were in the fields keeping watch and caring for their flock. They were probably feeling at peace, enjoying the evening. So I just want to paint that picture for you. So the shepherds are in their field. It's a beautiful starry night. They're just hanging out, chatting amongst themselves. And then, boom! Surprise! All of a sudden, an angel of the Lord stood before them, and they were terrified. Yeah, maybe. I mean, can you picture that? I never really took time to picture that. They're just sitting calmly by, and then, poof, the angel of the Lord stood among them. How many times, she goes on to say, has your life been like those shepherds? Where everything is just dancing along, being just quite fine, and then poof, boom, hello, a surprise. And something comes and knocks you off kilter, surprises you. Now, in their case, it was an angel of the Lord bringing good news, right? And we also have many of those situations where all of a sudden life takes a turn. Sometimes it takes a turn where there could be some concern and some fear, and that throws us off our game. Other times we're going along and we see a blessing. We see a sign from God, a sign from the universe that brings us back into the present moment of peace. How do you find your peace? How do you maneuver that? How do you manipulate your life when something comes up that throws you off? Do you have a good spiritual toolbox that allows you to immediately go and pull out the right screwdriver? Is it a flathead? Is it a Phillips? What wrench do you need? Have you got those tools at the ready when life can throw you off? I pray that you do. I pray that you practice good principles of self-care and being centered and grounded in love. This morning, Ed, you're confused. So maybe this is lending itself to some confusion. I was working on my talk on the advent of love. And I went, oh, wait a minute. That's next week. Now, that was this morning. That I went, oh, wait a minute, back up. Did I freak out? No. Because I was also prepared with the advent of peace, of being able to just take a breath, step aside, and go, okay, rewind. And come back into this present moment. That's why that story wasn't working. That's why that part wasn't feeling right. Do we have any good empaths in the room? Any good intuitive people that when you're in tune with your life, you can feel that something just isn't working, that something is off? Pay attention. pay attention to what your heart is telling you. Pay attention to what your gut is telling you so that you can self-correct. What is it? Our GPS? Do our GPSs still say recalculating? Some of them do, don't they? And sometimes we just need to recalculate. And we need to take a step back, let go. How many of you have ever fought with your GPS? Now, sometimes I'll just flat out ignore them because I really don't want to go the way that they're taking me. And I've done that before when I go to my daughters in Santa Cruz. It's like, I don't really want to go that way. I don't want. And more than likely, when I do that, I'm going to end up in some traffic. You know, GPS could just be another, a GPS could be God's protective services. But we do get, you know what it is? It's about making a conscious choice, isn't it? Making a conscious choice. And they're both okay, whether you want to follow guidance of Holy Spirit or if you want to get into your ego and just keep pushing your way. You'll get to where you're wanting to go eventually, but I bet you anything that God's protective services will get you there more quickly and more peacefully. Right? There's a story of a king who wanted a painting of peace, something that he could look at and be able to just breathe into the peace of the moment. And many people, many artists did paintings for him. He narrowed it down. He kept going, no, that's not it, that's not it, that's not it. He came down, he had two last ones, and one of them was a view of a mountain and birds in the sky and beautiful clouds and sun shining and green grass, and it was just lovely. And he could look at it and he could go, oh. But there was something about it that just didn't work for him. And he looked at the other painting, and that artist had painted a painting of a storm, of dark and cloudy skies, of craggy cliffs, of lightning. You could see the wind. You could imagine the thunder and the pouring rain. There was nothing about looking at that painting that brought up a sense of peace until he looked more closely. And underneath one of the cliffs was a bird nest with a family of birds sitting very peacefully and very calmly in the midst of the storm. Peace in the midst of a storm. And that's the one that we are told that the king chose. To be able to find our peace in the midst of whatever is happening. I also love the story of the woman that I always called dancing in potato chips. You probably have heard me tell this story before, but of the woman who was very busy with she had a very busy work day with a lot of demands on her time. She was working late, she needed to get home, she had things she needed to take care of at home, and she realized that she hadn't planned ahead for anything for dinner for her family. So she started thinking, what did she have in the freezer that she could thaw out and do whatever she needed to do to get dinner on the table. And as she was home, she was pulling things out, throwing things in the microwave, doing whatever she needed to do to get dinner on the table for her family so they could then do what was next, She grabbed a bag of potato chips. She was frazzled. She was just not in a good place. She grabbed a bag of potato chips, went to open the bag of potato chips, and the whole bag exploded. Potato chips all around her on the floor. It was in that moment that she stopped pushing. It was in that moment that she just surrendered and looked at the potato chips around her on the floor, and she just started dancing. That image comes to mind sometimes for me when I find myself in those places where I'm stressed. And just that image of a woman so scattered and so busy, just dancing in potato chips, and her family walking in and going, what is going on? Can't you just picture it? And they all start laughing and just crunching those potato chips into the floor. To be able to find that place within us where we can take a breath and find that sacred, holy, peaceful place. I had an incident happen this week that contributed to throwing me off my game for I don't know, maybe 24 hours. I don't know if it was a full 24 hours or not. I knew, because I've got a full tool box of spiritual tools, I knew how to work through it. But I had my second cataract surgery this week, and in the surgery center here in town, apparently they were really busy in the recovery room. And apparently they really needed my bed before I was fully awake and aware. And my daughter wasn't there yet. It was one of those moments where there was a confluence of chaotic. And it felt very chaotic to me because I was still pretty much under anesthesia. And they had me up on my feet and telling me to get dressed. First they threw the bag of clothes on the bed, and I had just managed to even open my eyes and telling me to get dressed, and I'm going, whoa, wait a minute, I can't even move here yet. And so the minutes rolled on, and one of the people who I guess if I have to oversell it, I must still have a little bit of holding this person responsible. But my hand, instead of being on a door jamb, was in the door as she started to let it close. You know how you get out from under anesthesia really fast? That'll do it. And I still have some bruises to prove it. I'll spare you all the rest of the details. She felt really bad. It was, I know she did, but it was just one of those things like, what the heck is going on? And in that state, and I think truly there's something within me that has remembered that state of being, of waking up in that fog. Now that I'm telling you the story, which I didn't know I was going to tell you, that has stayed with me all week. Just a bit of not being totally clear. Now, I wouldn't have known that until sharing that with you right now, because I'm fine. But sometimes things happen and whispers of it stay with us. Have you had that experience? It's like, oh, okay, I'm taking care of that. I'm over that. And yet when it comes to mind, there are just those shadows that come with it. What do we do with that? Well, apparently we share it with friends so that we can further let go of it. But you find that place, you find your breath, and you come back into the peace. The birth of the baby Jesus opened up a doorway for peace in a chaotic time in that world. Some people saw it as a gift. Other people saw it as a threat to the change of life as they understood it. Other people saw it as an opportunity to open up to more light and love. We get to choose how we're going to show up. Mary Kupferle, Unity Sister, in her book, God Never Fails, says, give it up to God. Let go of rebellion. No matter how rushed we feel, no matter how urgent any matter appears, and no matter how confused the issues of our life seem to be, let us take a few moments to just affirm, I rest in God, I wait for God, and I find that holy breath. I rest in God, I wait for God. The peace of God is now mine. I talked a few weeks ago about Emmett Fox's The Golden Key method of prayer. If you're thinking about your problem, you're not thinking about God. He says, turn that golden key and turn it right back over to God. Mary Kupferle says, give it to God, give it up to God. Right there in that moment, I give it up. What is it we used to say as kids? At least we did in my family. Uncle, I don't have to look up where that came from. Any of you have that? When you couldn't take it anymore, when your sister was tickling you too much that you couldn't stand it anymore. Uncle, whatever it is. It's the same thing. It's that place of surrender, of taking that breath. Okay. I am not in this alone. The peace of God is with me now. Give it up and give it to God, and so it is.